Okay, so this is part 3 of food and politics and why it matters. Why do you care? It matters because it affects how you buy your food. It affects what you're reading on the box. Food labels are mandated by the FDA, and they have to have 5 things on the food label: statement of identity, what the contents what the contents are included in the package, a food label, and then the ingredient list. So it has to be labeled that way. What goes on the food label is discussed by the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, but also the FDA. Changes to the food label did happen. I don't know if you remember trans fats, but trans fats were finally proven that they're actually not good for your health. That is basically a hydrogenated fat, so think Crisco. You basically took an unsaturated fat, which is liquid at room temperature, and you made it act like a saturated fat, which is solid at room temperature, but the chemical structure was in such a way where it wasn't in, if you're nerdy like me, it wasn't in the cis position, it was in the trans position where your hydrogen molecules are on the opposite side of the carbon chain. That affects your health. It was affecting your liver. It was affecting heart disease. It was affecting inflammation. And so they had to be removed from the food supply. And so from a governing association, that was a huge win. And then trans fat had to be labeled on your foods. So that changed the conversation around that around 2000, 2005, 2010. Now we're looking at the food dyes. We're looking at things that are in our food supply, in the American food supply, that are potentially harmful to health. The problem is we don't have as much research. We don't have as much data. It's really hard to find that data in a human population at a large scale study, because a randomized clinical control trial, you could potentially be harming the participants. So you can't do that ethically. So a lot of this is projection and assuming and looking at worldwide studies and looking at the food supply in potentially other countries that don't have these things. It's hard to do, and it's hard to lobby against big food industries. So what you can do is, if you're worried about the things that are in packaged foods, try to have less packaged foods. Or if you are buying packaged foods, pay attention to the ingredient list and remove the things that you want to remove. That does take more time. It does take more attention. And we are surrounded by packaged foods in our environment, especially in very civilized populations that just have access to food all the time. We have access to food 24/7. I could literally sit on my phone, order food, it'd be delivered to my office in minutes. I could literally go to a gas station at any time and buy packaged foods. And in a very busy society that never slows down, cooking has become less and less of a hobby, or you just don't have time. So it's easier to order a pizza, which is a very soft food. It's easier to eat crunch and poof foods, which are very soft foods, which are designed to skip the satiety cues in your body, so you eat more. If you chew less, you're potentially eating more. And that's all packaged foods. Is the goal of those packaged foods is to create very soft, chewy foods. So the takeaway: eat more at home if you can, more plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables, that's all that means. And try to have more meal-based foods versus snacks in between meals. That will potentially lower the processed foods that everyone's talking about. And that will potentially benefit your body in such ways where your metabolism, your weight management, your inflammation can be a little bit more baseline. That's so broad and it's not individualized, but it's a way to start when you're talking to the masses. So the government has a very hard job where they're trying to give very specific recommendations for the large population. And it's close to impossible because everybody's health and body and needs are different. Also, poverty and access to healthcare, those are social determinants of health. And that's really hard to fix with red dye number 40. You're not going to be able to do that. So sometimes when we're looking at conversations that are so specific, we're missing the bigger picture. So I think sometimes it's good to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and what are some simple things that you can do to better your nutritional health, but also not completely dysregulate your nervous system where the nutrition recommendations create panic or create fight or flight. And that doesn't really matter what you eat. Your cortisol levels are going to go up. I hope this is helpful. So politics in your plate does matter. Read your food labels, buy more whole foods, eat more whole foods, cook more at home if you can. And if all of these things are super impossible, reach out to a coach or a dietitian or someone to step into your life to make it more individualized and impactful, and you have some accountability. If this is helpful, hit subscribe and follow along. Okay, bye.